Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is me, OC Steve. So I thought, I'd invite some friends. So hopefully along the way, we might have some people jump on in with this live stream. But I wanted to discuss the first season of the Falcon and Winter Soldier that just recently wrapped up on Disney Plus. Just kind of wanted to break it down, talk about it, kind of use my own thoughts and opinions, and then hopefully we might get some other people that'll join us along this journey along the way as we go through. So I'm going to break it down pretty simple episode by episode and just kind of provide my thoughts and comments. I was going to do this kind of weekly, but I figured, hey, it's only 6 or so episodes, so why don't we just break it down right now? So let's start with episode 1, which I felt was the most influenced by kind of the MCU's guiding hand, if you will, by Kevin Feige. That episode is titled New World Order. So it takes 6 months after life has kind of returned from the blip. I think the blip is a horrible name. I enjoy calling it the snapshot. Most of my friends do too. So it shows Sam Wilson trying to stop George Bartok, aka Bartok the Leaper, played by George St. Pierre of MMA fame. There's a little opening scene there where the terrorist group LAF, who have hijacked a plane, have taken over hostages over the area of Tunisia. So it's kind of a race for time before they go into this kind of no-fly zone. So Sam has to get in there and rescue the hostages from Bartok. He is being aided and helped by U.S. Air Force First Lieutenant Joaquin Torres. So that's kind of a new character that they introduce. So there's this opening scene that's really cool. You could tell that was definitely influenced by Marvel Comics, where he has to rescue them. He's using Red Wing in some of the scenes, jumping from 2 helicopters, doing that whole bit. So it was high octane action there. And then really it goes into Wilson, who is, worried about the mantle of Captain America. Obviously at the end of Endgame, he is given the shield by Steve Rogers. So he's still struggling with the idea and decides to give Rogers' shield to the United States government, which they feature in a museum display kind of at the Smithsonian. There's a nice little cameo by War Machine himself. So he shows up for a minute and he's like, "Are you really sure you want to do this, Sam?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just don't feel that I'm ready to be Captain America." And then we transition over to Bucky Barnes, who's recently been pardoned by the United States government but has to have government mandated therapy, where he discusses his attempts to make amends for his time of being the brainwashed assassin Winter Soldier. We see kind of he's trying to make amends by not being violent, by exposing people, and kind of sets up this weird kind of espionage thing where he finds one of the former people in his book and crosses it out. So he's trying to, there's a nice little give and take with his therapist where he's trying to discuss that. And then we continue. Torres is kind of helping Wilson investigate this new terrorist group called the Flag Smashers, who believe that life was better during the blip. That obviously with 50% of the world being gone, it kind of helped reset the status quo, gave opportunities to people that were kind of being treated like third-class citizens. That's kind of their MO, is they want to keep the borders and the barriers of the world of how it was then. So he's investigating kind of a situation with the Flag Smashers. In Switzerland, Torres is injured by a member of the group with superhuman strength when he witnesses them rob a bank in Switzerland. The guy kind of does a superhero landing. Torres tries to go to confront him, and then he gets kind of his ass handed to him by this guy. He informs Wilson or Sam later of this, who has been attempting to help him in his, so Sam's like, when I can get to it, I'll get to it, but it's definitely on my priority to-do list. Sam is working kind of as a contractor for the United States government. So he is the Falcon on lease. The one piece from this episode that I didn't really like is kind of at the end where Sam goes back home to Delacroix, Louisiana, and is trying to help his sister, who is managing the family business, they're fishermen, get a bank loan. Kind of like an Anchorman, the Human Torch is denied a bank loan. The Falcon was denied a bank loan. And then it even doubles down on that, where they reveal the fact that, hey, Tony Stark didn't give anybody any checks. There was no money for being an Avenger. It was kind of like you had to figure it out on your own, which I think is weird, because if Tony really believed in this Avengers initiative, he would have given people money to pursue it. So just it's an awkward note to put Tony Stark in bad light and show that he was always still kind of a money-loving scumbag that, was pushing the Avengers but didn't help any of the Avengers, which seemed weird. It just seems Sam was kind of out on those skirts because it's like you have two members of the Avengers, Hawkeye and Black Widow, that are also covert agents for S.H.I.E.L.D., so they kind of had money in their hands, so to speak. But Sam's just the one guy who's, kind of leading group counsel and VA kind of stuff, so he's kind of left out in that regard. So it was just weird. And then the last little bit scene from episode 1 is that they reveal the government soon announces a new Captain America played by John Walker. So you see him walking out, making that announcement, holding the shield, and Sam's watching it on TV, just kind of struck by the whole thing too. Just kind of a weird tail end to that episode. And then we go into the second episode where it shows John Walker played by Wyatt Russell. He is the son of Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, show up to live up to the Captain America Rogers mantle. Barnes tells Wilson that he should have kept the shield, accompanying him to Munich, where the Flag Smashers and their leader, Carly, are stealing a shipment of medicine. Wilson and Barnes try to attack the group. It's kind of this crazy fight scene aboard, an 18-wheeler, and they're jumping back and forth, but they're really getting their asses handed to them. Just in time, John Walker shows up with his former Army Ranger friend, Lamar Hopkins, who is being called Battlestar, arrived to help, but the Flag Smashers escape. Walker kind of extends the olive branch to both Sam and Bucky, respectively, saying they should combine their forces, but both those guys refuse. And then kind of as a total left turn in this episode, for some odd reason, since they're using government money, they decide to have a random jaunt to Baltimore, where Bucky introduces Wilson to Isaiah Bradley. And if Isaiah Bradley's familiar, there was a series done in 2003 that I highly recommend that you read. If you get it through Comixology, you go to your local comic book store, you pick it up on Amazon. It's called Truth, Red, White, and Black. And essentially, this graphic novel focuses on Isaiah Bradley, who was one of 300 African-American soldiers experimented on by the United States Army in an attempt to create super soldiers. So he was the test subject before even Steve Rogers got injected with the serum and hit with gamma rays. They tested it on these soldiers. That's kind of a parallel to the Tuskegee experiment that happened, during 1942, during that time. So it does have a lot of parallels. It's a very good graphic novel. I highly recommend it. They kind of take it out of context for the series because they mention that Isaiah fought the Winter Soldier during the Korean War. So he is kind of an afterthought, at least in this series, that they were trying to replicate the super soldier program in the 1950s, very akin to the graphic novel. And Isaiah was one of the few people to survive it to show positive results. He was imprisoned and experimented on by the United States government and / Hydra because of the whole Winter Soldier bit for over 30 years. It's just kind of random that Bucky would know about this and he would never tell Steve, he would never tell Sam, or he would never tell the Avengers whatsoever. So I did enjoy the actor who played Isaiah Bradley in the series. If he's familiar too, or at least the voice is familiar, he's done a lot of voice work in cartoons. He's even done the Martian Manhunter on Justice League Unlimited. So that was kind of neat to see him do that. But more importantly, besides having Isaiah Bradley, we saw his grandson, Elijah, who might have a payoff in the future. He eventually becomes Patriot and becomes kind of one of the co-leaders of the Young Avengers, which was a series done in 2006. So you kind of had, these younger Avengers series, which we may or may not see. We're seeing a lot of breadcrumbs of that leading up to this. You see, a younger, Ant-Man's daughter shows up. She's kind of a teenage age. We've both seen Wiccan and Hulkling in WandaVision. The new Hawkeye series that's eventually coming down the line will have the Kate Bishop Hawkeye. So they're setting up stuff in the right direction to lead to the Young Avengers, in my mind. So we do see that Barnes, there's a whole scene once they come out of Isaiah's home. They're kind of getting into a debate because, obviously Sam's mad that he was kind of withheld this information. They start, barely getting into an argument with all of a sudden out of nowhere, like cops just pull up, and it's a very awkward scene. But ultimately they arrest Barnes for missing a group therapy appointment. But due to John Walker showing up and kind of smoothing things over, he gets him released by the police. They kind of have a little bit of an altercation. One last time, you can work with me. You're either working with me or you're in my way. I'm not going to offer any more helping hands to you guys anymore. So both Bucky and Sam agree that they refuse to work with Walker. And Bucky recommends and suggests to Sam that they make a visit to Zemo. If anybody's going to know the habits of these people that are playing out of the Hydra playbook, it's going to be Baron Zemo himself. So we do see John Walker's new outfit in the second episode, which is pretty much this right here. He's kind of, in a very Cap-esque uniform with little shades of U.S. agent that will end up paying off later in the series. So then we go into episode 3, the Power Broker. So Zemo offers to help to stop the Flag Smashers because ultimately he believes that anybody that gains these godlike level powers, it's going to corrupt them. Like absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's kind of Zemo's MO. So Barnes orchestrates kind of a prison break to get him out. You finally get to see Zemo as a Baron. Like they kind of didn't really play it off in the MCU series in that much regard. Zemo himself is just kind of like, a Sokovian spec ops kind of guy, but you actually get to find out that he is a European Baron. He has a butler. He has, a jet. He has this lavish outfit, and we finally get to see shades of Zemo from the comic books. He wears this kind of crazy looking fur coat. He's donning the traditional Zemo mask. So that was kind of neat to see as well. As they're jet setting to Madripoor, which is kind of this mythical, there's no extradition laws, kind of anything goes, open society that is designed for criminals, mercenaries, and scum alike. So then, they have to make different identities. So they go to Madripoor. They're trying to use some of Zemo's connections to get in touch to find out where the super soldier serum was made so they can kind of get a trail on Carly. They meet with Shelby, reveals that the Power Broker hired former Hydra scientist Dr. Wilfred Nagel to recreate the super soldier serum that was based on samples of blood and tissue from Isaiah Bradley. So Shelby is killed when Wilson's identity is exposed. And then kind of in a John Wick-esque kind of thing, every bounty hunter in Madripoor targets Wilson, Barnes, and Zemo. They are befriended by Sharon Carter, the niece, or I guess grandniece, depending on the lineage, of Peggy Carter, who has been living there as a fugitive on the island ever since the events of Civil War. She's kind of been deemed a traitor to the United States government. So, they kind of hang out in her little penthouse. She's revealing that she doesn't mind living on the skirts of life, that she doesn't mind this kind of living because it's either that or living nowhere in constant fear of the United States government. They learn that, Nagel created 20 doses of the serum, which Carly stole. The bounty hunters attack him. Zemo kills Nigel. This was one of my few favorite moments because it really commits to Zemo's character that he does not want these superpowers to exist, that the normal status MO of people being people is just fine. So he kills him to negate that. And then, they kind of get away in the middle of the chaos. Carter stays behind and Wilson promises to get her pardoned. There's a very awkward scene because Sharon throughout this episode just keeps on mentioning the Power Broker, left and right, almost to the point of nauseum. This was really bad writing. That the point that you can tell from a mile away that she's the Power Broker. And they double down on it when she's having this conversation with Sam as she's getting into the backseat of a high-end luxury kind of like a limo. So you definitely know that she's more than likely the Power Broker or she's a high lieutenant for the Power Broker. So then it cues back to the Flag Smashers where they raid and bomb a global reparation council. This is kind of the governing body that the UN creates after the snapshot. to help kind of people that just magically show up in the world 5 years later kind of get acclimated, kind of help them find a life, get that whole situation going. They attack a storage facility in Lithuania while Zemo, Barnes, and Wilson search for them in Latvia. This was one part where I'm like, why did it have to be a Latvia and not Latveria? They could start putting those breadcrumbs in for Dr. Doom. In my mind, you don't need to see Doom. You don't need to see Doom bots. You could have just said it was in Latveria next to Latvia. Barnes at the end sees one of the little beads from the Black Panther. They wear these bracelets that are like telecommunication beads. Barnes is confronted by Aoo, a member of the Wakandan Dormalage, which is kind of like the Royal Guard. I guess they're like also like the Secret Service, the FBI, and the CIA combined. In the Black Panther film, I literally thought that their position was only to guard the royal family and to be kind of like a military branch of Wakanda inside Wakanda. So I didn't know they kind of go wherever they want to go and do whatever they want to do, as long as it's in the best interest of King T'Challa or Wakanda as a whole. So then we go into episode 4. Aoo gives Barnes an 8-hour ultimatum to use Zemo before the Wakandans take him. As Zemo killed their king T'Chaka in the events of Civil War, they still hold him responsible, so they just don't want him running free. There's also a little bit of a flashback where Barnes is back at the end of Civil War, still kind of learning how to cope and fight the kind of conditioning and the codes of the Winter Soldier with Aoo. I thought that was a good scene. So he's learning how to fight it. He overcomes it eventually. That's where he gets the title called White Wolf. They kind of hold him in higher regard and as a friend and ally to the nation state of Wakanda as a whole. Zemo helps find Carly at a funeral for her adopted mother. That's the kind of the whole logic of why she was raiding that GRC thing, to get the drugs and the medicine for the people, because she's been witnessing her own family members suffer respectively at the hands of kind of the laissez-faire treatment of the governments of the world. Managing the GRC. Sam speaks with Carly alone and attempts to persuade her to end her violence. But Walker intervenes and a fight ensues. Zemo destroys most of the serum that Carly had on her, and somehow Walker grabs a vial of it. Aoo and the Dormalage come for Zemo, but Walker decides to refuse to hand him over. Then another fight ensues. Then kind of Walker gets his ass handed to him by the Dormalage. It's just more par for the course. This guy is an Army Ranger, but always somehow, every way, shape, or form, is getting his ass handed to him by people with super enhanced strength, but no fighting experience, crack trained troops from Wakanda. Bucky and Sam kind of kick his ass too. He's just the glorified punching bag of this series, at least in my mind. And then Carly, after that kind of transpires, Zemo escapes. Apparently he had like a secret tunnel underneath his tub that he literally just pushes and moves out of the way. So that's how he gets away. I thought that was kind of weird in itself, like, oh, hey, I got this magic secret tunnel, and come to my loft in Latvia, and I'm not going to have any security mechanisms or guns or tricks or traps for me to escape. So I thought that was kind of weird too. And more importantly, it's just Walker and Battlestar running around. I understand he doesn't have any powers. He's an Army Ranger. He's the elite of the United States Special Forces. But with that in mind, that he doesn't have the enhanced abilities and strengths of Steve Rogers, you think there would be a strike team around him. You think like in the vein of 24, where, hey, we want to set up the best scenario for John Walker to win in this global theater to show off our new Captain America. So how are we going to do that? We're going to confine these super terrorists to a certain area, create a perimeter, send Walker in, and create the most successful scenario to show off this new super soldier or hero that's been created by the United States government, trained by the United States government, and is our new tool. Doesn't pan out that way. He's just running around willy-nilly with his buddy Battlestar. Kind of the same with Sam and Bucky. Bucky and the Falcon. They're running around. They have little to no help. It's just the two of these guys. It's just really hard to believe that all these guys would be running around with no government oversight or intervention, no SHIELD, no FBI, no UN, no MI6, none of that. Like nobody's talking to them. I just thought it was really awkward that there's that and there's no guns. I mean, we get to this point in the series and we barely saw a handgun being used by Walker in episode 2 during the big rig fight that's over those trailers. So I thought that was weird in itself. It's that really any cracked trained counter-terrorist strike team could take out Carly and her super soldier minions in a second, like in literally, pun intended, in a snap. You could even had Hawkeye do it. He could have scoped out the scenario. The guy, at least for the comic books, is supposed to be the most precise person in the world. He's supposed to be better than American Sniper Chris Kyle. Literally, you could have given Hawkeye a high-powered rifle or Frank Castle, the Punisher, for that matter, and this would have been over in one episode. They would have saw their targets. They would have, attacked him, took him out, end of story, moving on. But not that. So feeling beaten, downtrodden, and inadequate, Roger and Battlescar are engaged the other members of the Flag Smashers, leading to yet again another fight. I think this is like the fourth or third fight in this episode, which Carly accidentally kills Battlestar. The accidentally kills, like, it's this weird pan and she feels remorse, but then like 2 seconds later, she doesn't give a shit the fact that she killed somebody. She's already blown up somebody in the other episode. Why would she care that she literally threw a guy into a marble pylon and broke his spine and he's sitting there dying? So feeling powerless and enraged by his friend's death, Walker takes the serum, uses his shield to kill one of the Flag Smashers in front of horrified bystanders who film all the action. So this is supposed to be a parallel for people recording a tragic event done in, either global theater or military kind of stuff. So that's where we get this image that everybody was kind of losing their lunch about, where, we got the bloody shield. We don't see the outcome. We see him fighting him, beating him up, putting him down, kind of doing a ground pound. And then we see the traditional Captain America shield slice. And then it pulls up showing a bloodied shield. This is so tame. The reaction for it that people are flipping out about is even crazier because we've had other series already that are far more worse. We've had The Boys with Homelander literally nuking people in a 747. He melts them. He zaps them. He has thoughts about killing hordes of people that are protesting against him and Vite Industries, respectively. We've had other crazier, more violent episodes in Dread. Just to go on to, even in The Punisher for that matter, with Jigsaw killing a bunch of people indiscriminately too. So this is very tame for standards. I mean, this is just like glorified artificial reactions when I see people flipping out about this. You're not even ready for episode 8 of Invincible when we finally see Omni-Man and Mark fight. The fights in Invincible are way more intense than just seeing a simple bloodied shield. So, that's just something that's going to come. I just think it's funny when people try to apply this Marvel standard to other properties that aren't Marvel related and go, well, they did this, so this is great. Yeah, but did you guys forget a couple decades ago when we had The Walking Dead and, they killed Abraham and Glenn? That's how they introduced Negan. He turned their heads literally into smashed pumpkins with Lucille. But hey, a bloodied shield is far more worse, right? So then we go to episode 5 called Truth. Wilson and Barnes demand the shield from Walker, which then leads again to another fight where Walker literally rips the wings out of Wilson's suit. Wilson and Barnes take the shield, breaking Walker's arm. So it's just kind of like this, and then he redoes it. Barnes finds Zemo in Sokovia and hands him over to the Dormilaje, while Walker receives an other than honorable discharge and is stripped of the title of Captain America and any of his, money and veteran rights, respectively, which I felt this was like ultra rushed. Like usually when you have a court martial, it takes time. They factor in all the evidence. Yet again, there was no consultant done by Marvel with this show. It just really kind of boggles the mind that they didn't have anybody with counterterrorism backgrounds, that they didn't talk to anybody who served in the military whatsoever or any, federal organizations that dealt with counterterrorism. Because at the core of this show, it's really about global politics and dealing with counterterrorism. So when you don't have those consultants, it shows that people that have limited to little real life experience or actually dealing with these matters, it just exemplifies that. So it would have been nice to have deferred to somebody who knows tactics, who knows action, not just getting stunt coordinators to push your weird narrative. that just felt ultra rushed at this point. So then, after being stripped of Captain America, afterwards, Walker is approached by Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, played by Elaine from Seinfeld. She kind of mentions that, this is just all theater. This is this, that, and the other. In my mind, you can still serve a greater purpose. So here's my phone number. If I call you, pick up the phone. I got plans for you. Wilson then, Sam leaves his damaged suit with Torres and visits Bradley, who states his beliefs that a black man cannot be captain, that a black man cannot and should not be Captain America. Wilson then goes home because he's just, at this point, he's waiting for something to happen. It's kind of like the line that Torres says, the best thing we can do right now is wait for them to show their hand and react. So he goes back home to Delacroix. Wilson returns home, then helps fix the family boat with the assistance of several locals and Bucky, who delivers a briefcase from the Wakandans to Wilson. I wonder what that's going to be. He damaged his wings, so maybe new wings? Who knows? Maybe. Barnes and Wilson train with the shield. They kind of get a little training montage of him throwing around the shield, going around, doing dipsy doubles and diagonals. And then finally, the Flag Smashers plan an attack on the GRC conference in New York City, which we're supposed to believe is the UN building, but they don't call it the UN building. And they're joined by Bartok, who Carter has secretly hired. Yet again, is she the power broker? I guess we still don't know. She's the power broker at this point. I mean, we already knew that a couple episodes ago. In the mid-credit scene, you got Walker sitting there kind of Iron Man-esque, pounding the forge, building a new shield. So then we go to the episode that just aired last night. So Sam shows up wearing the new Captain America uniform and flight suit from the Wakandans. So, this is what it looks like in the comic book. Shading, lighting looks really great, but this is what we got in the show. I don't dig this at all. I mean, it's literally a comic book adaptation, but what it really reminds me of is the Blue Power Ranger. Because in my mind, they should have kept it very akin to Steve. Now you're probably going, dude, what would you have offered as a counter argument? I would have offered that. That very much looks like Captain America and doesn't look like the Blue Power Ranger. Captain America, Blue Power Ranger. So Sam jumps in, fights with the Flag Smashers with the help of Barnes. Carter and John Walker shows up. Carter accidentally reveals that she is the power broker to Bartok, and then kills him while Wilson attempts to reason with Carly before Carter kills her as well. Wilson convinces the GRC to postpone the forced relocation of the displaced people that Carly died fighting for, instead to make efforts to help them, which is kind of weird because, comparing it yet again to the series 24, most of the time, the Bauer Power Hour, Jack Bauer literally has little to no time to talk to the politicians or the president, which he saves on a constant basis in that show. But all of a sudden, Sam feels this inkling to just start, talking down to these senators. And so happens it's in front of cameras and everything. And he's rocking the new Captain America suit. So he's feeling righteous. But at the end of the day, in my mind, it's still the Blue Power Ranger suit. It just looks like really bad cosplay, especially around the cowl and neck area. It just doesn't look well. It would have been better to have kept that costume. I reiterate again, it would have kept still pieces of his suit, but accentuated the fact that, he's still kind of trying to accept that. That could have maybe been a secondary suit. And then the other narrative that I don't like is that, yeah, Stark tech's okay, but Wakandan tech's like 8 times better. But yet these are the people that created holographic situations to isolate themselves from the regular world. Don't share their technology, only give it when they deem that it's necessary or somebody has earned it. Where Stark was trying to be a capitalist, living the American dream, made Iron Man suits to try to improve the quality of life. The Wakandans isolate themselves and hide behind their holographic force barriers. So, then the remaining serum-enhanced Flag Smashers are caught by Barnes and Walker and sent to the raft. They're in an armored transport, but then they're killed by Zemo's old little decrepit butler en route. He hits a little button, and then they blow up. And then it shows a scene at the raft where Zemo's listening on a little transistor radio that they've been killed. And he kind of has a little smile on his face because all the loose ends have been kind of wrapped up. then we transition over to a scene where DeFontaine is talking with Walker's wife, and then Walker comes out of this room. He's given a new uniform, and his new code name is U.S. Agent, which is what Walker is known for. So kind of some speculation on my end. It's not really revealed if DeFontaine's going to be good, bad, or in between, but I see this happening because in the post-credit scene, it's not longer going to be called the Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's going to be Captain America and the Winter Soldier. So I kind of still see this fight happening between these two button heads. But more importantly, Walker's on the raft. So there's other people that are on the raft too, including Zemo. So in my mind, this can go two ways. Either they're going to set up the Thunderbolts, which is a bunch of villains trying to go good, or they're going to do the Dark Avengers. Now, Zemo has an alternate persona, Citizen V, when he is with the Thunderbolts. Kind of very similar. He wears a mask, has a sword, has the cape, the whole nine. So I could kind of see that as a footnote in the future of them deciding to do that, if they decided to go that route. Barnes, there's a little scene with Bucky where he makes amends with everyone that he has hurt or enabled as the Winter Soldier, while Wilson has a memorial dedicated to Bradley. There's a statue that's added to the Smithsonian era. In the mid-credit scene, Sharon Carter is given a full pardon and rejoins the CIA, but intends to use her access to sell government secrets and weapons. It's kind of a fun little scene. She's all like, yeah, we may not have super soldiers, but we just gained ability to prototypes, weaponry, intel, and all this other stuff that we can sell on the open market. So the power broker is still going to power broke things. So in a nutshell, it started great, and then it kind of had some weird moments. And then the finish was incredibly rushed because the ultimate goal of this series was to make Sam Wilson the new Captain America. I thought that using Isaiah Bradley was good, but it could have been better if they actually kept it to the context of the source material. I'm hoping to see Elijah in the future. I enjoyed John Walker. They kind of made him a problematic, kind of bumbling idiot, which I just didn't dig. He's an Army veteran. He's an Army Ranger. He's a decorated Army Ranger. But the narrative that they were trying to push is that if you get that many accolades, you have to have done something and have a checkered past in your military. I don't dig that. There are some veterans that serve their country honorably, do the right thing, even with carrying out orders, and don't live in fear of having post-traumatic stress disorder or any other disarray. They served gladly, but that implication that they're creating where everybody in the military kind of has some fractured or checkered past is not a good narrative, because this show ultimately is for adults and teenagers. And if teenagers have parents serving right now, they don't really need to have that in their head. Let's just get rid of that narrative and just make Walker his own little isolated case. I'm hoping that they do more with him. I thought Wyatt Russell was great as John Walker. I thought, honestly, this was Zemo's series, and he was the most underutilized character in the series. He was just kind of a tertiary character, which I hope him and Walker potentially get to do Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers, and that leads to something in the future. I know right now at this moment, they are continuing with a Captain America 4. They haven't really revealed too many details, but it is getting greenlit for cinematic treatment. There's even rumors and rumblings of a Steve Rogers in Time movie where they're going to try to bring back Chris Evans to kind of explain him going kind of a la Quantum Leap, putting back the Infinity Stones where they need to go in their rightful places. So that's just kind of my thoughts and opinions. I just wanted to share what I thought was great. So, it is what it is. I just thought it was okay. It could have been better. It was very rushed at the end. But, I want to know what you thought. It just didn't really hit home for me. I thought it was all right. So, WandaVision was okay. This was all right. It's just more par for the course. Of course, I'm hoping Loki is better down the line. But as always, let me know what you thought. These are just my opinions. I just wanted to share some light based on the source material, which I read. Some of the decisions I thought were weird in comparison, where they could have leaned back. So that's it for now. I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks.